our next speaker, who is Sufian Sadiq. We're really looking forward to this one. Tim and I and various other colleagues saw Sufian at a conference. I can't remember what the conference was called now, but we do remember Sufian very, very well and very fondly. It was a great presentation. I hope I'm not building you up too much, Sufian. I'm going to put your camera and your mic on and make you a presenter. Okay. And you're in your car.
Well, if you can hear me, can you all hear me clearly?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, I've had an absolute nightmare. So I'll to start with by telling you a bit about my nightmare. I went to my children's sports day. They're 5 and 6. I promised myself I wouldn't get involved because I'm dressed for a conference and I'm online in a little while. And when they said it's the dad's race, my ego got the better of me. I entered and I've pulled my hamstring. So I've been nursing it on the school grounds and I've just got into my car and I won't be able to make it back to my office. So you'll have to excuse me. If it's any consolation, I'm sure by later on tonight on my Twitter, you'll see the video at the point at which the hamstring went. So apologies in advance. I appreciate we're running slightly behind schedule. Am I right, Mark?
Just a little bit, but that's okay. And you've sent me your presentation, I believe, by email, have you? So that I can get it open for you.
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Just give me 2 seconds and I'm going to get that open for you.
So I'll get started. And I think the most important thing around racial equity is the fact that it's like with many other things, like what Hannah was talking about. A lot of debate takes place around equity. And what we learned a lot in the last year or so. There was the immediate aftermath of what happened with George Floyd. And that immediately led to people having a view one way or another, take the knee or not take the knee, wear the shirt or not wear the shirt. And I think the thing that we kind of really missed there was what's the purpose? What's happened? What's led to the incident that took place around George Floyd? What leads to the fact that countless George Floyds exist in terms of incidents like that in America? What happens around similar events in day-to-day life in Britain and how people are treated because of the color of their skin? I talk about racial equity because it's an area that affects me personally. But what I talk about can be applied to any of the protected characteristics, and I'm sure others on the call would probably agree with that. It's a challenge. It's a huge challenge, being different sometimes. Being different in a landscape where the difference you have and you possess is worn, is evident, it can't be hidden, is there for everyone to see, and therefore judgments are made. So my session is not really about whether you have a view on critical race theory or not, whether you have a view on white privilege or not. It's about a look at the world through my shoes and my eyes. If you walk in my shoes and you look through my eyes, the reality is you can't have an opinion on that. And that's really important because sometimes all we need to do in life is understand somebody else's perspective. Understand what it's like to be Sufian, what it's like to be different, what it's like to be a Pakistani, what it's like to be a Muslim, what it's like to be different. And that's the real message. And I always say that your view doesn't matter. And the reason that is because it's not there for debate. I share my views and I share them quite openly and passionately so people may understand what it's like from my side. I'll go on to the first slide, please, Mark. I start with a question, and it's a question I ask you all to consider. It's a deep question. It's one that I really want you to think about. I want it to resonate with you as an individual. And when I say it, I want you to think about those words. Even though you've read it, I want you to hear those words. I want you to understand and let that permeate through. Are you a racist? You as an individual, you as a person, are you a racist? Let's forget those around us. Let's ask ourselves that question. Am I racist? And I'll almost let you pause for a second to contemplate and reflect on that. It's one that really gets under our skin. It's something that really almost upsets us when someone asks us that. How dare you ask me, am I a racist? I'm a really good guy. I'm really nice. I eat curry on a Friday. I do this. I have a friend. My neighbor's black. Ask the question. Because actually what we know is if every single person in education, in conferences like this up and down the country I do, if everyone said I'm not racist, and if everyone said that I have no prejudice, and they do, then why do we only have 0.2% of black heads in the country? What's gone wrong? When my daughter comes home from school and says that my teacher said that I can be an astronaut if I want to, if I work hard enough. Not really. You couldn't be ahead, my love, if you went 20 meters up the corridor from your classroom. Your chances of being ahead as a Muslim female are very, very slim. So the fact that they're sending you to the moon, are we giving children pipe dreams? Because we're not actually living some of this reality in our day-to-day lives in schools. If we genuinely, none of us are racist, where are the problems coming from? Not many people stand up and say, you know what, right, you've got me, I am a racist, that's me. You know what, my EDL membership, my BNP membership, you've got me, I am racist. Not many people stand up and say that. But what we do know is every one of us has a little bit of racism in us. Now, some people find that controversial. Some people say, I'm not sure. But I'd unpick and strip away that word racism and the way we understand it. The way we understand it is very much down to the P word, the N word. I'm more around focusing on the fact that how do we react and respond to differences when something doesn't conform to our norm of what we understand? How are we around those people? How are we checking ourselves for the differences that we notice around us? The little subliminal messages, the unconscious bias, the messages that are going in the back of my head. How am I connecting them? Next slide, please, Mark. And this brings me on to the impact of media. It's really interesting because the impact of media gets right into our brains. And we like it, we don't like it, it doesn't matter what we say. Every one of us is a product of the media. That's modern society, but actually even historically, we were products of media. The media was just different. We know it was highly unlikely Jesus looked like he does in that image I've got. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Jesus probably looked closer to me than probably a lot of other people on the call today. But what is it that has made us whitewash things in society where white is good and black is evil, even historically, even early paintings, early religious paintings? What's happened? Where's it gone wrong? Is it a new narrative? No, it's not. It's a historic narrative. You look at the doll test in America, and you can look at it on YouTube. I hate including that clip in my talks because it gets me very emotional. But 3- and 4-year-old children are given a black doll and a white doll. And they're asked which doll is horrible. And even the black children and the white children pick up the black doll. Which one's disgusting? Black doll. Which one you don't want to be friends with? Black doll. Which one's ugly? Black doll. Which one you don't is horrible? Black doll. Every negative word associated with the black, and the children pick up the black doll. Which one's pretty? White doll. Which one's nice? White doll. Which one's caring? White doll. Which one do you want to be friends with? White doll. How's that happened to 3- and 4-year-olds? But if you look at the media around men that look like me, so if you looked at Pakistani men, Asian men, South Asian, and you said, right, what is the depiction? It's about 98% of the time when a man is from a South Asian, Pakistani heritage depicted in the media, it's negative. 98%. If you then said a Pakistani man that's got a religious symbolism, perhaps, of some sort, if you may call it that, a beard, that looks very similar to people from Afghanistan, very similar to perhaps pictures of people from the Taliban. Same skin complexion, same hair color, same beards, same beard length. 99.9% plus of men that are depicted that look like me in the media is around the word fundamentalist, radical, extremist, terrorist. It's never positive. It's always negative. Always negative. Why? How does that then manifest itself in the way I'm thought of? How does that manifest itself in the way people see me? Does that impact you? Of course it does. Somewhere deep down in our minds, we make a connection to the time that we saw someone that looked almost like me in a negative way. So the way we picture evil. So in modern society, we've pictured evil as evil has a face, and that face of evil looks like Osama bin Laden. We've given evil a face and we've given it characteristic. We've said, actually, when we see men with beards that are South Asian in their color or Middle Eastern, we will say that this is what bad looks like. And we will keep showing that image. What we won't do is, we won't say associate color or physical characteristics of, say, Hitler or other very, very bad people in history, because that then makes people think white people are bad. So the narrative doesn't sell in the Daily Mail or any other newspapers. You see grooming gangs that are shown, and you'll have 26 people in the grooming gang. 10 of them were Asian. Oh, guess what? All 10 of them made it on the front page. Conveniently, the other 16 perhaps didn't, and they were white. Do we go and push that narrative again around the race and color? We ask ourselves the questions, and we probably will know what the answer is. That actually, if we look around us, certain groups are depicted negatively, whether it's on Netflix. Now, we've seen an absolute saga in the last 24 hours in politics. Craziness. How do we depict those men? It's a bit like in America. If you're Middle Eastern and you shoot, if you're black and you shoot, what are the headlines? If you're white and you go and shoot in schools and you kill innocent people, you're a loner. You've got mental health issues. We are ready to make excuses. Let's talk about something more difficult. And I'm a huge supporter, very openly, around the support for refugees, irrespective of where they come from. But let's ask ourselves a question. The elephant in the room. The media, everyone got stuck recently. And rightfully so, we should be supporting the Ukrainians. But we must also look at the fact that Russia absolutely obliterated Syria, far more than they've ever attacked any other nation in modern time. How have we desensitized ourselves to the Syrian children dying on dinghies crossing the Calais from the Channel crossing? How have we desensitized ourselves to that? How is it that one refugee and another refugee status has changed in the way the media portray that narrative? And we saw them tripping over their words. These are people that are just like us. They eat the same food. They're civilized people. There were no Syrian refugees coming 15 years ago to the UK in the way they are now. There weren't Libyan refugees coming to the UK the way they are now. There weren't Iraqi refugees coming to the UK the way they are now. Perhaps the connection of the wars has something to do with it. But we portray a narrative, and that narrative desensitizes people towards different groups. That desensitization then is what causes and manifests itself in the fact that noble people, good people who perhaps sign up with the best will in the world to serve their nation as police officers and teachers, inadvertently discriminate without knowing, because we're all a product of social constructs around us. It's about checking ourselves. It's about asking the hard questions. Next slide, please, Mark. Who am I in education? Do I feel like I belong? Do I feel like I'm included? Do I feel like when people often say as leaders, are you an imposter? Well, I don't feel like an imposter. I feel like a trespasser. I always feel like I don't belong. And that's really important. Next slide, please, Mark. I always give this slide, and I always give a context to understand. Sometimes we don't know the stories behind people and their faces. I'm fortunate enough to be a fellow of the Chartered College of Teaching and a board member and a trustee for them. For the Chartered Institute of Educational Assessors, I'm a fellow. I'm a founder of Discover Islam. I'm a chair of governors at Windmill Hill School. I run 2 teaching school hubs, which I'm a director of, and we have 4 skits based within that. We have 2 behavior hubs within that as well. We've been the largest providers of CPD nationally from any organization in the last 3 years. 27,000 people have done CPD with us in 87 countries. Something I'm really proud of. I'm a trustee of the Culture Trust, looks at libraries, the arts, dance, drama, museums. I'm a trustee for Luton Food Bank and I'm one of their founding members. I'm a trustee at Luton Town Football Club's Community Trust. I'm an advisor for Challenge Partners and Best Practice. I'm a trustee for Level Trust, a uniform poverty charity. Why do I tell you this? The chances are that I can apply for headship in a school around this country and still not get shortlisted because my name won't fit the bill. I can then, even if I get through a shortlist, my chances of getting the job are very minimal. Despite my academic performance, my intelligence, my outcomes in the past, my disciplinary knowledge, irrespective of all of those factors, my chances are incredibly slim. And the narrative is the one you have to question. If I walk out after having met an all-white group of staff for lunch, I'll be okay on an assembly. I'll be okay on a lesson presentation. I'll be okay on a presentation, on an interview. But often the words will be, he's a great guy, but I'm not sure if he's right for us. What does that mean? Let's unpack that. What does it mean I'm not right for you? How have you said I'm not right for you? What have you based that on? Why is it that governors will say, he's great, he may be a great role model in a Luton school, so I'll be great. It's okay for me to be a great inspiration for Luton people, for Bradford people, for Leicester people, for Birmingham. But rural Britain, no, Cornwall, not for you. The exclusivity of motivating every child of any background is there for white men, white women. But I can't because I'm only great role model for some. Why? And that's the question I often ask you. Think about it in your own school context. Think about colleagues around you and think about if Sufian came to interview and he did a good interview. I don't believe in positive discrimination. But if I got it on merit, if I was good enough to be there on merit, what would people say about me after they've met me? Next slide, please, Mark. I often look at those young men at the bottom, and as you can see, albeit injured with a hamstring issue right now, I even dress like Gareth Southgate. I love the English football team. I'm a massive fan, and when we were watching the championship, just like all of you probably on the call, I was absolutely gripped. But what would we want our young people to be in our schools? We'd want them to be the absolute best. Imagine doing that. Imagine being the absolute elite in the world, in the top 0.1% of footballers in the world, if you make it as a top 10, top 15 team, which I hope England are, probably not based on the recent performances. But if you're an international footballer like Marcus Rashford, what else do we want them to do? To have values, to have character. We have values on our school walls. Live them. That's what I say when it comes to values. Let's live values. Let's not laminate them, but let's look at those laminated values. Does Marcus Rashford fulfill them? Well, millions of children ate because of Marcus Rashford. And I can almost say to you, the last 24, 36 hours of what we've seen of politics, yeah, has he been the greatest thing that's happened to British politics in the last 2 years? Probably, yeah. The greatest impact on British politics in the last 2 years, in my opinion, was Marcus Rashford meals. But let's ask ourselves a question. You're a young black boy in Great Britain, and you see 28,000 racist, abusive messages go out on social media within the first few hours of these boys missing a penalty. Imagine being their mum. You've told them that in a fair society, my son, if you do well, if you work hard and you're good at what you do, and if you have values instilled in you, and if you're a good human, people will love you and they'll respect you. Not unless if you're black. Because imagine opening that tweet and seeing that people are calling your son a monkey. People are shouting abuse at them. People are throwing stuff at them, throwing bananas at them. That's modern society, people. That's happening. It's happening in our society, and we want to play blind to it. Next slide, please. And I'll finish with this. This is my daughter. I lost the dad's race today at Sports Day, but she won her race, which made me incredibly proud. But she said to me a few months back, a year ago, actually, can I tell you, Daddy, how you can be the best daddy in the world? And I'm from a poor family, a poor ethnic minority family, a poor Luton family. I've worked hard, I've done well, and we've gone on and we live perhaps on the outskirts of Luton. To be fair, we moved out from the inner parts. They go to a rural village school, and they're brilliant. As children, they fit in, they love the school. But she came and she sat with me and she said, can I tell you how you can be the best daddy in the world? I said, of course, please. I'm super competitive. So I'm like, right, I'm in with this one. I've got it. She said, could you change this? And I said, what do you mean? Could you change the color of my skin? Could we go somewhere now and you can make me whiter and I have yellow hair? I do this work, people. I do this work day in, day out. And even my daughter doesn't feel like she belongs at the age of 5. If they don't belong at the age of 5 in their schools, in their classes, and they already feel that children and other people think that their color makes them ugly and different, we have problems. But she also knows that sometimes when she goes out with her daddy, people will call him a Paki. And I have to explain what a Paki is. I have to say, that's us. So why do they shout at you? Why is it when we go on holiday sometime in different parts of Britain, people shout that at you, Baba? Why? Why do people have to spit sometimes and throw things out of their cars at us? How do you explain that to a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old? How do you explain that actually, despite being brilliant, this stuff will still happen? I leave you with a message, and that message is really simple. I don't believe in another scheme of work, tick box. I don't want to be a tick box. I don't want my daughter to be a tick box for any teacher already struggling with workload issues, and we have to add one more bit of work to them. And she has to be included because there's a tick box. All I say to everyone is, whenever I go around or whenever I talk to people, If all of us checked ourselves, if all of us did that one moment of reflection and said, can I be a better person? Can I challenge my own prejudices? Can I be more acutely aware of the prejudices I hold? Can I be more acutely aware of my prejudices? And can I challenge them? Then we can all make a difference. Every one of us can. To be a true ally, you can't sit on a fence. You've got to call out racism when you see it. You've got to challenge yourself first and then challenge others second. But you can make a bigger difference than I can, because it's a white ally is far stronger than somebody else calling out racism like me, because people expect me to say it. But when you stand up and say, no, I'm not going to let Sufian be treated like that, not here. We're not going to speak about him like that. Why isn't he good enough? I'm going to unpack that. I'm going to challenge you. Let's stop sitting on the fences and let's start challenging racism wherever and however we see it. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry that I had to do this in the car. And as you can tell, I'm sweating profusely. And I don't want to open the car window, and I've kept the AC off because it is messing with the sound. So as soon as I go off, I'm just going to go outside and lie down on the grass again.
Sufian, thank you so much. As I say, we've seen you at the conference, and we loved your presentation. And again, you know, the way you speak about this topic, it's so emotive. And hopefully, I think everyone on the call will have got that. I'm sorry about your hamstring, and I'm sorry you're baking in your car. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Maybe you could send us the video of your hamstring injury so we can add it to the YouTube clip.
I'll send it across, Mark. Thank you, everyone.